Allah gave one of his servants the choice between this world and the hereafter, and that servant chose to return to his Lord. These words echoed from the masjid, touching hearts like lightning. The companions were in shock, their hearts heavy with sadness. The blessed Prophet was preparing to leave the Medina, the 10th year of Hijrah. The city was in unusual silence. The Prophet felt his time was coming. Hajj had been made obligatory only a year earlier. So the Prophet prepared for the first Hajj. He sent messages: "Get ready, we are going for Hajj." Thousands gathered, excited to perform their first Hajj with the Prophet. But no one knew it would be his last. This would be the Hajj, where he would deliver the farewell sermon, his final words that would echo until the end of time. The journey lasted 10 days, and Mecca appeared on the horizon. Caravans joined them. The number of Muslims passed 100,000. 10 years earlier. He had to leave secretly with only Abu Bakr. Now hundreds of thousands stood together. This Hajj marked the greatest return in history. On the 9th day, he arrived at Arafat. He stood on his camel and began his farewell sermon. O people, notice he did not say Muslims, because this call was for all humanity until the day of judgment. All praise belongs to Allah. Whoever Allah guides, no one can mislead him. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his servant and messenger. O people, listen carefully. I do not know, maybe after this year, I will never be with you again. O people, your lives, your property, and your honor are sacred. You will be questioned about everything you do today. He spoke about interest, then about women. O people, I advise you to fear Allah regarding women and to treat them with kindness. You have taken them as a trust from Allah. Then came words remembered through all history. O people, your Lord is one, and your Father is one. All are children of Adam. There is no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab, nor of a red-skinned over a black-skinned, except in Taqwa. The most honorable in Allah's sight is the one who fears him most. O believers, I leave with you two things. As long as you hold firmly to them, you will never go astray: the book of Allah, the Quran, and the Sunnah of his Prophet. He paused and asked, O people, tomorrow you will be asked about me. What will you say? The companions answered, you have delivered Allah's message, fulfilled your duty. The Prophet raised his finger and repeated 3 times, be my witness, O Lord. It was after the Asr prayer. The Prophet was on his camel Kaswa. Suddenly, his expression changed. Drops of sweat began to fall from his blessed forehead. The companions knew this state. It was the moment of revelation. When the revelation ended, the Prophet recited the ayah, today I have perfected your religion for you, completed my favor upon you, and chosen Islam as your religion. When he finished reciting, silence filled the air. Everyone's hearts were full of joy. Yet Abu Bakr was crying. He understood this was a farewell. When Allah completed the religion, the messenger's duty was ending. It was the return from the farewell Hajj. After the conquest of Mecca, more than 60 delegations came to Medina. The entire Arabian Peninsula had accepted faith. The foundations of the Islamic State were being built with the conquest of Mecca. Peace and order spread across Arabia. The messenger of Allah turned coal into diamond. The companions he raised became great teachers. The 11th year of Hijrah had begun. The Prophet fell ill with fever sickness that weakened his body. Every Ramadan, Jibril would come and recite the Quran with the messenger. But that year the recitation was done twice. After hearing Jibril recite Surah Nasr, the Prophet said, O Jibril, I feel that my death is near. Then Jibril recited, the hereafter is better for you than the worldly life, and your Lord will give you until you are pleased. Only 23 days remain. The messenger of Allah often visited the graves. When he visited the Baqi cemetery, he said, peace be upon you, O land of the believers. Soon we will join you. O Allah, forgive those who rest in these graves. He visited his daughters Zainab, Kulthum, and Ruqayya. He then visited the graves of his grandson Abdullah, his friend Uthman ibn Mazun, his son Ibrahim, and lastly the grave of Fatima bint Asad, the mother of Ali. Then he softly said, I wish I could see my brothers coming to me at the Qasar pool. The companions were surprised. O messenger of Allah, are we not your brothers? They asked. The Prophet replied, you are my companions. My brothers are those who will believe in me without ever seeing me. He was speaking about us, those who follow his path without ever seeing him. Now the final 13 days had begun. His illness grew stronger, his body weakened. The companions were filled with sorrow. Through him they had found light and comfort. Now they feared being left in darkness again. Even in his final days, he kept thinking of his Ummah in his prayers and tears. There was always his Ummah. One day, as he was crying, Jibril Al-Hissalam came and asked, O Muhammad, why are you crying? The Prophet replied, My Ummah, O Jibril, I am thinking about my Ummah. Then Jibril brought glad tidings and said, Your Lord says, we will surely please you concerning your Ummah, and we will never leave you in grief or sadness. Only 5 days remained. The messenger of Allah knew his time was near. He wanted to seek forgiveness and make peace with his companions with the help of Ali. He went to the mosque and said, Gather my companions soon. The mosque was full. The messenger of Allah began to speak. I will be the first among you to reach the Kawthar pool, and I will be the first to welcome you there. I do not fear that you will return to disbelief after me, but I fear that you will compete for the world, that you will envy one another, fight over wealth and position, and destroy yourselves. O people, the time of my departure has come near. If I have wronged anyone, here is my back, let him come in. Strike me, if I have taken anyone's property, let him come and reclaim it. The one dearest to me is he who demands his right or forgives it, for I want to meet my Lord without having wronged any soul. And Yakasha stood up and said, O messenger of Allah, I was with you during the Tabuk expedition. On the return, your whip touched me. The Prophet remembered and brought the whip. Akasha stepped forward, but did not strike. He bent down and kissed the seal of prophethood on the Prophet's back. He said, My purpose was not to hurt you, but to kiss that mark. The Prophet smiled and said, Then either strike or forgive. Akasha replied, I forgive. Then the Prophet again turned to his companions and said, Allah gave a servant the choice between this world and what is with him, and he chose what is with Allah. Upon hearing this, the sound of weeping was heard again. It was Abu Bakr. The Prophet looked at him with love and said, Of all people, Abu Bakr has supported me the most with his friendship and his wealth. If I were to take anyone from my Ummah as a close friend, it would be Abu Bakr, but the brotherhood and love of Islam are higher than, he said, close all the doors that open into the masjid except the door of Abu Bakr. Through these words, the Prophet was giving a message. This trust now belongs to Abu Bakr. His illness grew worse. He no longer had the strength to go to the masjid. He was now lying for long periods, as if unconscious, opening his eyes only from time to time. Once he opened his eyes again and asked, Has the congregation prayed? They replied, No, they are waiting for you. He said, Tell Abu Bakr to lead the prayer. So Abu Bakr led the congregation. During that time, the Prophet suddenly regained some strength with the help of those beside him. He came to the masjid. When Abu Bakr noticed his arrival, he stepped back, but the Prophet gestured to him, Stay where you are. Then he sat on Abu Bakr's right side, and together they prayed. This was the last prayer the Prophet led with his companions. It was the 13th day of his illness, a Monday morning. Abu Bakr was leading the morning prayer. The messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam lifted his head slightly and looked out from his home. From there, he saw his companions standing in rows for prayer. At that sight, his heart filled with joy. These were the companions for whom he had endured countless hardships. How different they were now from the days of ignorance 23 years ago, all standing humbly before their Lord. It would be his final sight of them in this world. The Prophet called for his beloved daughter Fatima. She was his only surviving child. He seated her on his left side and whispered something to her. Suddenly her face filled with sorrow and tears began to flow. Then he whispered again. This time she smiled. Later, when Aisha asked about it, Fatima said, At first he told me that he would soon depart from this world, and I cried. Then he said, You'll be the first of my family to join me. And I smiled, feeling her father's pain deeply. Fatima clung to him, sobbing, Father, how much suffering you are. And the Prophet looked at her gently and said, My daughter, after today your father will suffer no more. The messenger of Allah was now on a journey with no return, he who was sent as a mercy to the worlds, who worked tirelessly for his Ummah, who endured every hardship to spread the message of Islam, who became the finest example of life itself, was now at his final moment. He had been an orphan before he was even born, losing his mother at a very young age. His life was filled with struggle and difficulty. He received the first revelation while meditating in the cave of Hira. Frightened and confused, he rushed to his beloved Khadijah, saying, Cover me, cover me. He had been chosen for prophethood, and thus began a struggle that would last 23 years. In the early years, he and his companions faced cruel persecution. For 3 long years, he and his family were trapped under a harsh boycott, left hungry and thirsty. Just when that hardship ended, he faced another, the loss of those he loved most. He had lost his uncle Abu Talib and his beloved wife Khadijah. With hope in his heart, he went to Taif to spread the message of Islam. but there he was mercilessly stoned if he had wished. Allah could have destroyed the people of Taif, but he, the prophet of mercy, did not wish that. He said, I believe that from among them will come generations who will have faith despite all these hardships. The prophet never gave up. He migrated to Medina to spread Islam there. He built a new civilization in the Battle of Uhud. He lost his uncle Hamza. He lost some of his most beloved companions. These losses were heavy on him, yet he drew his strength from Allah and continued his mission without hesitation. The messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had fulfilled his mission. He performed the farewell Hajj and delivered his final sermon, leaving his last words and advice to all of humanity. Yes, he had completed his duty in the most perfect way, and now the time had come to return to the eternal world. The day was halfway through, and the sun was setting. Aisha held his blessed head in her lap, resting it against her chest. The prophet was struggling to breathe. His lips moved softly as he whispered, O Allah, bring me to the highest companion. And he also said, be careful with your prayers and never abandon them. Then Jibril alayhi came and asked about his condition. After that, he said, the angel of death seeks your permission to enter. The messenger of Allah gave permission, and Azrael entered and sat near him. O messenger of Allah, he said, Allah has commanded me to obey you in all matters. If you wish, I will take your soul. If you wish, I will leave it. The prophet looked at Jibril, and Jibril said, O messenger of Allah, the highest assembly awaits you. The messenger of Allah said, O angel of death, come and do your duty. Near him was a bowl of water. He dipped his hands into it and wiped his face. Then he said, La ilaha illallah. He raised his hands toward the sky and repeated, O Allah, the highest companion, the highest companion. And at the age of 63, he surrendered his soul. He had taken his final breath. Fatima broke down in tears, crying loudly when his wives began to weep. The companions understood the messenger of Allah had passed away. Ali's eyes filled with tears. His body froze like stone. Uthman was speechless. Even Umar could not bear the moment. He shouted, the messenger of Allah has not died. He is alive. Whoever says that Muhammad is dead, I will strike him down with my sword. At that moment, Abu Bakr was in his house. When he heard the news, he came running. He entered directly without speaking to anyone and uncovered the prophet's face. He kissed his forehead and said, O messenger of Allah, how beautiful is your death, just as your life was beautiful. Then he covered his face again and went out to the companions. Abu Bakr said to the companions, whoever worships Muhammad, know that Muhammad has died, but whoever worships Allah, know that Allah is ever living and never dies. Then he recited this verse, Muhammad is only a messenger. Messengers have passed away before him. If he dies or is killed, will you turn back on your heels? With this single verse, Abu Bakr calmed everyone down. They understood and accepted that the messenger of Allah had departed from this world. Even Umar, who had been shouting, stopped and came to his senses. Tears were flowing from every eye, and sorrow was pouring from every heart. By the next day, at New Medina was filled with people weeping in grief. Every Muslim's heart was torn apart by the news. Then the time for prayer arrived. Bilal, as always, began to call the adhan, but when he reached the words, Ashhad Anna Muhammad and Rasulullah, his voice cracked. He could not continue. His throat closed, his voice trembled, and he began to cry while the blessed body of the prophet still lay unburied. A leader had to be chosen for the Muslim community to prevent confusion or weakness. A successor had to be chosen quickly. Several leading companions gathered to discuss who would become the leader. When discussions began, the Ansar and the Muhajirin could not reach agreement. Then Umar stepped forward and said, for now on, the leader of the Muslims will be Abu Bakr. He is our commander, and I give him my pledge of allegiance today. He took Abu Bakr's hand and gave his bay'ah. Seeing Umar's decision, everyone present accepted it. Then preparations began for the washing and burial. The body of the prophet was washed by Ali, who cried deeply. While doing it, tears ran down his face. After the washing, preparations for the shroud began. By Tuesday, the shrouding was completed. However, the companions had different opinions about where the prophet should be buried. Then Abu Bakr said, I heard the prophet say a prophet is buried in the place where he dies. Hearing this, they decided to bury him in the room of Aisha, the place where he passed away. He left behind no wealth, only a sword and a mule. He had 2 pieces of land, which he had already given away for charity during his life, yet he left us the greatest inheritance, the Quran and the Sunnah. He fulfilled his duty perfectly. Now it is our turn. The Prophet was the one who gathered the first Muslims. He was beaten and stoned in the streets of Mecca. He took young Muslims rejected by their families into his own home. He endured hunger for 3 years under the boycott. He lost his wife, his uncle, and his protectors, and migrated to Medina, leaving everything behind it battered. He stood against great armies with only a small number of Muslims at a hut. His tooth was broken and his face was wounded at the trench he suffered hunger for. Days at Hudaybiyah, he sacrificed much for peace. He conquered Mecca, and when he returned, he chose to go back and live in Medina for 23 years. He worked without rest. He never lived for himself. Every moment, every breath was for his Ummah. He spent his nights in prayer standing until his feet were swollen. When they said, "Why do you tire yourself so much?" he replied, "Should I not be a grateful servant?" He fed the hungry. He cared for orphans. He freed slaves. He gave rights to women. He stood against injustice. But most importantly, he changed hearts. The cruelest people of the age of ignorance became symbols of mercy through him. Now, let us stop and think, why did he suffer so much? Because there was a mission, and this mission required sacrifice. Allah sent down a book that would guide all of humanity, but this book had to be lived. Someone had to show it, live by it, and be an example of it. That task was given to the Prophet now, 14 centuries later. Here we are, and we must ask ourselves, how much do we really care about this mission? Our Prophet gave everything: his comfort, his peace, his family, his wealth, his health, his life. What are we giving? Look at the world today. It is lost in darkness. People are confused, searching for a way, but cannot find it. Depression is spreading. Addictions are increasing. Families are breaking. Societies are collapsing. Why? Because they have turned away from Allah. And what about us? We have the solution, yet what are we doing with it? We have the Quran, the cure for every problem. We have the Sunnah, the perfect example of how to live. We have a great inheritance. But are we protecting this legacy? Every Muslim has a responsibility. The Prophet said, "My brothers are those who will believe in me without seeing me." We are those brothers. But being a brother does not only mean to love him, it means to walk in his path. We must start with ourselves. We must strengthen our faith, fix our prayers, purify our character. Then we move to our families, teach our children about this religion, not only with words, but by living it. Then we reach out to others, our neighbors, our friends, show them Islam through our good manners. Today, most people do not know Islam. It is often shown falsely in the media. Our duty is to show the real Islam, the Islam of love, mercy, justice, honesty, and trust. But it is not easy. It never was. It was not easy for the Prophet, not for his companions, and not for any true believer. This life is a test, and every test is hard. But never forget, Allah knows what is best. If he gave us this test, it means he created us strong enough to pass it. Think for a moment. If we do not protect this mission, who will keep this religion alive? Who will guide humanity? When the Prophet left this world, he entrusted this Ummah with a mission. If we fail to carry it, that trust will fall, and Allah will ask us about it. Faith is not just believing in the heart. Faith is action. Faith is life. If you believe, but do not act, that faith weakens. But if you hold to this mission, your faith grows stronger, your heart fills with light, and your soul finds peace. We want to be among those the Prophet called my brothers, the ones he missed and longed to meet. He will wait for us at the Kauthar pool with cups prepared, but some will never reach there. Those who lost their way. Now is the time to wake up, the time to rise. You live for your Ummah, O Messenger of Allah. But what are we living for? You stayed awake through the nights praying for your Ummah, but we think only of ourselves. You never gave up your mission, but we lose our way over the smallest problems. Yet you long for us. You called us my brothers. But are we truly worthy? Love is proven by action, not by words. If we truly love you, we will obey you. We will follow your way, O Messenger of Allah. We promise to protect your path, your mission, and your legacy today. We will make a change today. We will begin to live by your example today. We will take a step to become the brothers and sisters you longed for. Every day, hundreds of thousands are born. Every day, hundreds of thousands die, and most leave this world without ever knowing Allah. We hold the truth in our hands. We hold the light in our hearts. The world is waiting to hear this message. People are lost in darkness. Be one of those people. May Allah make us a nation worthy of you. May Allah keep us firm on your path. May Allah grant us the honor of meeting you at the Kauthar pool. Ameen.